Interesting paper. Uh, what happened? This paper is very interesting paper, and we as residents of Odisha have more interaction engagement with natural disasters in our day-to-day life. Almost every year, we face such disasters, particularly people from coastal districts, right? So cyclones have become part of our day-to-day existence, at least annually, starting from Ganjam to Mayurbhanj, and in some central districts. Then we have these disasters in the form of drought, and we have regular recurring of floods in every October, September, or August. We have regular floods in some of the districts, sometimes severe. And with the climate change, as Odisha is closer to sea, so we face regular recurrence of these natural disasters. So what we need a policy perspective or a theoretical perspective of disasters so that we can handle them, we can prepare ourselves to face them, and we can try to, through policy intervention and community resilience, we can try to reduce their dangerous impacts on our day-to-day life, whether on life or injury or property and so on. So globally, this has become a challenge, and we have two approaches to natural disasters or man-made disasters. So, what are the two approaches? One is a broader approach, another is a sectarian approach, conservative approach. So, in terms of a conservative approach, we define disasters as something which damages life and property of the people in a large scale, destroy the physical environment, and had its impact on post disaster life and property. So, this is how we define disasters. And in a broader perspective, we see, suppose migration is a disaster all over the globe. So millions of people are out of their home. That means out of their origin country where they're born, out of poverty. This is poverty-induced migration, and they live a life of second-class citizens, face many inequalities, tortures, and exploitations. Then we have man-made disasters like drought and others. Suppose a drought comes out of the policy intervention of states or governments, shifting from agriculture to other areas or neglecting agriculture, neglecting irrigation, neglecting crop pattern. So this may result in drought. So this is the broadest approach or broader approach to define or see, understand disasters. And then another is the Marxist approach comes under the category of broader approach. So what is that approach? We find so that is a dichotomy between man and nature. So man exploits nature for its own benefit, and out of this exploitation, it over exploits or exploits nature for profit, which is inherent, which is natural in a capitalist system. Then disasters are created. So disasters are classified into two categories: man-made and natural. Then we have two kinds of approaches. One is a conservative approach, another is a broader approach. So if you go by the definition of, you can write it down or you can know, I'll take you that definition. That's the most accepted definition all over the globe because that is officially of United Nations. So this international strategy for disaster reduction, International Strategy for Disaster Reduction, ISDR. It defines a hazard as a potentially damaging physical event. Potentially means powerfully damaging physical event or phenomena or human activity that may cause loss of life or injury, property damage, and social and economic disruption or environmental degradation. So here we find the consequences of a hazard or a disaster like loss of life. There will be loss of life. There may be injury to the life. there may damage of the property, there may be social and economic disruption, or environmental degradation. Environment will not be as it is. Already environmental has been degraded like anything in the last 4 or 5 decades. So hazards can be single, consequential, or a combination of consequential and single. So disaster, why did it occur? There are so many studies. We cannot study in this limited time, but man-made disasters and natural disasters. Here there is a debate. There is a dichotomy in its analysis. What is natural? So normally before coming of science, before the emergence of science, for the study of the behavior of nature, earlier man was believing in disasters as the wrath of God, WRTH, wrath of God. भगवान को अभिशाप जब हम कुछ राघव पूछन्ति. Corona came because Lord Jagannath became angry with the behavior of the people. People became selfish, etc., etc. So earlier, people were believing that flood is coming because God of water is angry, and drought is coming because sun is angry. There are so many issues. So after the development of science, which analyzed, studied, and logically proved and logically convinced us that this is the reason why these are happening, why earthquake is happening, why there is an earthquake, why there is a cyclone, why there is a flood. So we now are able to understand the scientific reason, the behavior of particular behavior nature behind these events, which are called disasters or hazards. So we have another perspective, that is sociological and ecological, which I was just telling you. What is that approach? That is the approach of man's behavior towards nature, man's use of nature or misuse of nature. Dinosaurs became extinct because of the development of the civilizations, man's use of nature. So we can use the term misuse of nature. We misused, overexploited nature, whether it's natural resources, mineral resources, or forest resources. We overused them, exploited them for our benefit or in the search for more profit, more surplus value. So that is the logic of a capitalist system. So the capitalist, industrialists, or multinational corporations, what they do, they overexploit the natural resources, and nature revenges. Nature takes revenge. Nature, under compulsion, changes its behavior, leading to these disasters. So question is whether disasters are obvious or natural, or whether they are man-made, whether they are the result of man's behavior, man's reactions. That's why we saw disasters as the imbalance in the equilibrium between man and nature. So the natural equilibrium is imbalanced. And the challenge now is how to at least rectify this equilibrium, this imbalance in nature. So that we need a policy intervention, which we'll be studying in this paper. Through policy interventions by the states or by the governments, we can change we cannot change the behavior of nature. We can reduce the risk of disasters or the impact of disasters, negative impact of disasters, and we can prepare ourselves how we can face, how we can challenge these dangerous phenomenon or dangerous happenings, which is causing loss of life in a gigantic manner, in a huge manner, right? Suppose how policy interventions can be made. Suppose in a earthquake-prone area, if you don't build earthquake-proof homes, that means states should ensure that the homes built, buildings built by people must be earthquake-proof. So if out of corruption it is passed by the corrupt agencies, municipalities or urban governing bodies or states, then in earthquake there will be a huge loss of life and property. So land management in flood area, water management in flood area. Suppose the river beds connecting to sea are not cleared, even after 50 years. We are spending huge monies on dams, on flood management, on flood reconstruction. If you study, suppose you take the case of Odisha, and most of the common districts that face floods, Cuttack, Jaspur, Jagatsinghpur, Kendrapada, Ganjam, these are the districts that face flood regularly, recurrence of floods. So if these reconstruction costs of dams, roads, buildings, etc. For last 50 years, you will take up as a cost. You will see that if you could have managed the land pattern, water pattern there in a effective scientific manner, then we could have managed flood in Odisha. That is not a big thing. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, long way back, when he was minister, he started studying and suggesting for flood management in Odisha. But from then on, we have not able to put a scientific study and scientific policy intervention regarding the flood. That is what is stressed here, that we should have scientific management of these natural disasters. First, we should identify the causes, then map the weaknesses, and then map the resources, then must design and plan what should be the intervention in various sectors, whether it is drought, flood, or cyclone, etc. Right? So, Odisha government or India government cannot stop climate change. For climate change, entire humanity is responsible, particularly the Western developed nations. They have put heavy pressure on Earth, on nature, through massive industrialization, through massive exploitation, over exploitation of natural resources. First, it was England, France, Germany, America, all the developed, Russia, all the developed nations, and now it is China and India. So China and India are arguing that you have destroyed the nation, so give us some kind of scope to continue, because we need industrialization, we need employment, we need employment generation, we need roads, buildings, constructions, cars, and other items for our civilization. So here comes a Gandhian approach as a relevant approach, and also a Marxist approach. That not neo Marxist, because they are arguing that Gandhi particularly on sustainable development. So what is sustainable development? Sustainable development is that development which uses the resources judiciously, so that the future generation will have a right to use it. Suppose we are over exploiting natural resources like petroleum, petrol, diesel, gas, kerosene, etc. So maybe after 10, 20 or 50 years, this will be exhausted. Future generation after 50, 60, 70 years may not get to know what petrol was. Maybe existing. The quality of air, quality of water, all things will be polluted. So next generation may not survive on this earth. Forest will not be there. So if this process continues, so greenhouse gases, the rise of temperature globally. If it grows by 0.1%, 0.2%, or 0.5%, you will find that there is overflooding of the coastal belt, rise of sea, and villages and areas close to sea will be under flood, under water. So habitat will be destroyed, agriculture will be destroyed, right to food and food security will be destroyed. You will be astonishing to know that World Bank report and other credible global agencies report, they say if this process of global temperature will continue, then fishing will be at danger. Fishing, that we catch fish from the sea. So if fishing will be in danger, the people dependent on fish for earning, that is fishermen or fisher folk, they will lose their jobs. And people who are getting nutritious food from fish, they will be losing that job. Then if there will be a rise of temperature and rise of sea, the coastal belt agriculture will be totally destroyed close to sea, the areas which are close to sea. And if agriculture will be destroyed, food security is at danger, particularly in these countries which have sea border or close to sea or sea coast. So this is the danger. That's why disasters are very serious phenomena in our modern life today. And instead of seeking God's help, we need to have the help of science, technology, and policies, scientific policies on the basis of advice from science and technology, on the basis of logic from science and technology. That's why we need to study disasters. We need to identify how disasters can be checked, or their impact can, dangerous impact, negative impact can be reduced. That's why there is a organization, international strategy of disaster reduction under the United Nations. So this disaster management is a crucial question under this chapter. And now we'll go to classification of these disasters. So in 1999, in India, we have J.P. Pant High Power Committee, who classified different disasters into different categories, right? Let us check that. There are subheadings. Then under subheadings, there are other headings. Suppose first they identified disasters under water and climate. Water and climate related disasters. One is flood, then is cyclone, then tornado and hurricanes. That is big cyclones or dangerous cyclones. Hailstorms, hailstorms, cloud burst, badal phata varsa jota. Cloud burst is a common problem in Himachal Pradesh. Then heat wave. Heat wave to Odisha we face heat wave. Then snow avalanches, baraf पड़िकी जो भांगी जाए सब, droughts, sea erosion, thunder and lightning. So all these kinds of disasters comes under the category of water and climate change. Next is geological disasters. What are geological disasters? Landslides. जो पत्थर गली पड़िया mainly in hill areas, रास्ता बंद हो लोक थियो घर थियो गाँ थियो, all will be tested under will come under this land and stones. Then earthquakes, then large fires, dam bursts or dam failures, then mining fires. We have epidemic called pandemic, that is corona, pest attacks, cattle epidemics, food poisoning. These are other kinds of disasters coming under biological. Then chemical, industrial and nuclear. Nuclear disaster in Chernobyl in Russia. Then in Madras, there is a leakage of nuclear reactor. Then chemical and industrial disasters like Bhopal gas tragedy. Then we have accidental disasters, forest fire. You find it regularly in Canada, America, Australia, etc. Then urban fires, fires in the huge buildings in Calcutta, Bombay, where people will die. Mine flooding, oil spill. Oil spill you have seen in Paradip and other sea coasts. Major building collapse, serial bomb blast has happened in Bombay, Karachi, America and other areas of the world. That's a cause of terrorism. Festival-related disasters. So when lakhs of people are gathering in a temple and there's a stampede, you will find 100, 200, 300, 400 people will die. There will be stampede, pandemonium, not management of the human trafficking there. Then we have air, road, rail accidents, boat capsizing, and village fire. If village houses are closely knitted to each other, if there will be fire, then hundreds of houses will be burnt. That will be a disaster. Then there are various agencies, we find ministries for various types of disasters. I'm just giving you 2-3 examples. Suppose air accidents, that comes under civil aviation ministry. If there is a civil strike, communal riot, that comes under home ministry. And if railway accident, there will be under railways. If there is a chemical disaster or nuclear disaster, that is under Ministry of Environment. And if there is a disaster like this corona pandemic, that comes under Ministry of Health, Family Welfare in Odisha, and Ministry of Health in India. So these are types of disasters that we find and various ministries. Yes. Hello. Are you asking something to me? Hello? Hello? Is somebody asking something to me?
No, sir, everyone is in mute.
Okay. So if you see natural disasters in India, you will see there are coastal states like Odisha, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, which are always prone to natural disasters. There are 4 crore of hectares of land mass in these areas, you will find. And 68% of net sown area is vulnerable to droughts here. And 55% of the total area is in seismic zone in India for category 1, 2, 3 for earthquake. And then we have Himalayan sector and Western Ghats. So flood is a common problem in Krishna, Godavari, Mahanadi, and other major rivers, Ganga, in Bihar, in West Bengal, in Andhra Pradesh, in Odisha. So as a nation, India till now has completely, we can say, failed to manage floods. There are so many reasons. There are bureaucratic approaches, unscientific approaches, traditional approaches. As I have already explained you, you'll find one thing. We have spent in the post management of floods more money than we should have spent on management of floods, pre-management of floods. So how floods can be controlled, can be managed? How water can be during that period there is sufficient more water, so that's why there is flood. How more waters can be saved, can be managed, can be controlled, so that there will be no flood. But what we are seeing, we are actually more concerned with post-mortem. We are concerned with after flood, how the construction of roads damaged by flood, buildings damaged by flood, crops damaged by flood, that we are more concerned, not pre-flood arrangement. So that is a major lacuna in the Indian government or Indian state regarding this management in the state governments and also in central government. So in last 10, 15 years and particularly 20 years, there has been a change in the approach. So now we are more concerned how the water can be managed during peak season, that is rainy season or post rainy season. Well, there is a regular recurrence of flood. Particularly in Odisha, we have developed from a unscientific model to a more scientific model. But we have not till now 100%. We cannot say we are 100% successful in managing floods or in controlling floods. So we need more science, more policy intervention to control floods. And then regular recurrence of cyclones. So cyclones. Why cyclones are happening? Because of the climate change, that is growth of cyclones. So cyclones, India has a long coastline, and because of this pre-monsoon, May, June, and post-monsoon, October, November, there are regular recurrence of cyclone in Bay of Bengal. Impact of this cyclone is confined to the coastal districts, particularly in Odisha and other coastal states. It's almost 100 kilometers. So you cannot do that. You cannot change or stop a cyclone because that depends on the global climate, global factors, sea factors, climate change, and the behavior of other natural factors that is beyond the control of Odisha government or central government. So what we have to do? We have to depend on the model. And in this sector, Odisha is now one of the best in the world. So United Nations has appreciated, other agencies have appreciated. What we have seen in these years, that the model of Odisha in the management of cyclone is one of the acceptable scientific models all over the world and appreciated all over the world. So what is that management? That will come later in the second part and third chapter. But I am just giving you some kind of introduction to this idea. How we could be successful. We have seen a 99 cyclone. We have seen, I was there in 99 cyclone post reconstruction arrangement, leading some NGOs working there, and I have seen one thing is lacking, that is community resilience. We'll study community resilience, what it is. And there is a total lapse of coordination between community, state government, and other government agencies. So that is one major failure. Second, we did not have pre-preparation to face the challenges of cyclone. But now we are overconfident as a state, as a people, as a community to face challenges of cyclone. So here many things have to be learned from this. Then we have earthquake, landslides. I have already told you these are the natural disasters that we face commonly in India. So most of them are man-made. Why I am calling it is man-made? Because we have these nuclear, chemical, biological threats, natural disasters like cyclone, flood. Why I am saying a broader approach, that is man-made approach? Because man has overexploited nature and nature is reacting in its own way. That is a very simplified definition of man-made natural disasters. So you cannot say Odisha people has not destroyed nature. So when American people destroy nature, their impact is not only on America, their impact may be on Antarctica, maybe on Africa, maybe on Odisha. So climate change means there is global climate change, not the climate change in Odisha, here, there, or anywhere. It's a total climate of the entire world. So you find the health hazards. So why this corona came? Somebody is doubting the reactions of God. Somebody is criticizing China. Somebody is criticizing it came in the laboratory. So all these are not scientific theories. From last several years, because of globalization, there is a huge human movement. And one is one of the industrial centers of the world, not of China, of the world. Italy is producing there, Spain is producing there, Germany is producing there, France is producing there, England is producing there. If there is a small disease like cold, then that will travel immediately throughout the world, because there is a huge movement, fastest movement of the people, of goods or commodities. So any infection which were earlier confined to certain areas now is spreading throughout the world. You see, in last 1 month, what happened? 22 people from England have come with the new genome to Odisha. So we are threatened. We are fearful that this may lead to second spread of coronavirus with a new genome, which is mutation with new mutations, and that is 60% faster in spreading than the earlier version. So that's a virus that is changing its mutation. It's obvious, right? So this man-made approach has to come to the center stage or to the dominant discourses of natural management of the natural discourses. So the earlier narrative has to be dropped down. So the new narrative, new discourse that is emerging in throughout the world in the management of natural resources, that is based on the postmodernist approach. That will see modern and postmodern. So in postmodern approaches, we find we have a stress on this man-made approach. That means we have to respect nature. We have to respect the balance of nature. We cannot kill, destroy, forcefully change nature as to our wish or profit, or as to our benefit. So man is part of nature, not nature is under man. Man is under nature. Man is part of nature. You cannot destroy nature. You can use nature. You cannot misuse nature. So that's why these environmental concerns that is emerging today in 21st century, that is global warming and extreme climate, that is a new danger that has come in last 5-10 years. 10 years only. There's agroforestry. Forest is being cut off. Forest is being vacated for industrial purposes, for man's benefit and man's use. So forest will be the forest is the lifeline. It's like oxygen of humanity. As we need oxygen for our survival, so entire mankind and nature depends on forest for their survival. If you now destroy the Similpal range of forest from Keonjhar to Baripada, then what will happen? There will be serious natural imbalances or disasters again and again. So we have destroyed forest. So in technical terms, in government data, there is forest, but in actual data, actual existence, there is no forest. So that's why we have to protect forest, not for forest's sake, but for us. So the soil degradation, desertification, flood control, drought reduction in pollution of groundwater, that is a new emerging disaster. Groundwater is being polluted, so you will not able to get pure water for drinking after 20-30 years. Then increasing biodiversity in the farming system and waterside scale. So disaster prevention, rehabilitation, these are the issues that we need to address. Then next is urban risks. There is growing urbanization. We cannot call in a very conservative sense that is a disaster, but it is creating a disaster and it will create disaster in future. Because so many bastis with inhuman conditions. You go to Bombay. In Mumbai, the biggest basti of Asia is there, slum. Right, in that slum, corona spreaded like fire. Unfortunately, Maharashtra government could control. So you will see in Bhubaneswar, in Kotak, in Bhubaneswar you have Salia Sai, that's the largest basti. And every sector in Bhubaneswar there is basti. So we need those people, those who are living in bastis. They are small businessmen, daily laborers, workers. You need them. They build your buildings. They build your roads. They build your electricity stations. So the entire urbanization process is created, built by these workers. You cannot throw away these workers into inhuman and polluting conditions in a slum. So you have to plan for them. You have to settle them. Otherwise, there will be disaster. This is a man-made disaster. Already, so the nature of risks. So now, in the first chapter, in the end of the first chapter, find, and there is a dichotomy between environment and development. Whether we need development, yes, we need development. But what kind of development? Now there is a word, new word, you know, not new word exactly, it is in use, but that is in demagogy or just using, not sincerely doing these things. That is called sustainable development. In Odia, we call it as Nirantara Vikas. That means development must be continuous, must be sustainable. We need to use the resources given by nature. It is air, it is water, it is natural resources, mineral resources, land, petrol, gas, kerosene, forest, all have been given by nature. Man has not created these things. If you believe nature has created or God has created, whatever you may believe, that is up to you. But question is, do man has a right to destroy all these things? Yaku Hello, hello.
Yes, sir.
এটা কটিল নেই anyway, the network problem
Net.
network problem anyway. So this big question, that's why which earlier has been identified marks by Marx in a term that is in a scientific very technical term, that nature cannot be destroyed. If nature destroyed, that nature will destroy man and his civilization. But the present system of globalization is misusing nature. So what we need today, we need policy interventions basically to protect nature, its balance, and we need to protect ourselves. So we have learned from the air quality in Delhi. In the first chapter, you will find what are the environmental stress. So how can you judge environmental stress? If you open your telephone in the morning, you'll see the air quality of Khorda is very poor right now. If the air quality of Khorda is poor, then there are chances that you will suffer from lungs related disease. And if you suffer from lungs related diseases during the corona pandemic, the life is at a serious risk, particularly for the people above the age of 60 or older people or people having diabetes and other comorbid conditions. This is severe in Delhi. Why there is a higher death rate in Delhi? Because the quality of air in Delhi is very serious. Millions of vehicles have increased. Why vehicles have increased in Delhi in last 10 or 20 years? Because of globalization. Globalization actually produced a system of individual cars, and it becomes easy. So loan for cars becomes easy. So you have cars. When you have cars, you buy petrol or diesel. You run on roads. When lakhs of millions of cars will run on roads in Delhi, what will happen? If there is industry and if there is burning of these agricultural produce, so in surrounding states like Haryana, Punjab, and UP, bordering areas, Rajasthan, ଯାହାକୁ ନଡା ଯୋଉ ପଡନ୍ତି, ଆମର ଯୋଉ ନଡାଟାକୁ ପୋଡି ଦିଅନ୍ତି, ଆମେ ଆଣିକି ଛଣ କରି ରଖନ୍ତି, ସେଟା ପୋଡି ଦିଅନ୍ତି ଚାଷ ଜମିରେ ମାନେ ସାର ହବା ପାଇଁ. So that will create a serious air quality condition, deterioration in the condition of the air quality. So we face, ତମେ ଦିଲ୍ଲୀରେ ରାସ୍ତାରେ ଗଲାବେଳେ you face burning of eyes and pain in breathing, difficulty in breathing. So that we have faced in Delhi. You know the state of Delhi report environment. So many reports are there by the government and non-government agencies regarding the poor quality of air and other environmental states in Delhi. So now we'll come to the what is the modern position and what is the post-modern position. Post-modern is a period after the modernity. So regarding concepts of the city, modernists say the city is an object. We need to build cities, expand cities, develop cities in an unplanned manner, where there will be slums. So postmodernist approach is something different. It has social diversity, a landscape needs a perfect planning, scientific planning, and with a humanitarian approach. We need to establish houses for the slum dwellers, for the poor workers, for the daily laborers, and other workers who are engaged in maintaining, cleaning the cities. So they are part of the life of the cities. Without them, you cannot live in cities. ସଫେଇ କର୍ମଚାରୀ ଯଦି ନ ରହିବେ, ଯୋଉମାନେ ଘରେ କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି କାମ ହାଉସ ମେଟ୍ସ, if they will not there, workers will not there, electrician will not be there, plumbers will not there, cleaners will be not there, maintenance repairing people will not be there, then you cannot live in the city. You cannot do these jobs one. Then you throw them in slums, so slums will be polluting, and you cannot say corona will come in Salyasai Basti and not to unit 4 or unit 9 onto the VIP area. So these disease do not have any boundary or does not discriminate poor and rich. It will come to everybody. So that's why postmodernist approach is that city is a landscape which we need to maintain, and it's a social category. Different sectors of people live in society and also in urban areas. And then urban design. So urban design, there is lower density, lower light functioning, etc. in modernist approach. In a post-modernist approach, we need diversity, emphasis on local contact, etc., etc. So strategic planning, this is redevelopment of slums in a modern approach, renewal and regeneration of containment in a post-modernist approach. So in a post-modern approach, now we are having some contents or elements that we need to develop for proper urban planning. So we find in this chapter biological hazards, these other kinds of geological hazards, and other this pandemic and other hazards or natural disasters. We defined them, we classified them, we take some examples. We took two approaches, man-made and natural, and also conservative and broader. Then in second chapter we find disaster management circle or cycle, you can say. So one is disasters and development. So if you have recurring disasters, you cannot have development. This is one aspect. Second is, if you have disasters, you cannot have inclusive development. So why Odisha is not growing? There are so many reasons, but one of the major reasons is that we are continuously victims of natural disasters. Mainly two types of natural disasters we face in Odisha, that is flood and cyclone. So when a cyclone comes every year, visits you, embraces you, kisses you, so what will happen? You are simply damaged. Your house is damaged, you are damaged, your crops are damaged, all aspects are damaged. So everything is damaged. So if everything is damaged, so if everything is damaged, then your economy is damaged. Individual economy, family economy, as well as the state economy. So if your individual economy is damaged, you cannot recoup because the earning will not increase. The income will not increase. Likewise, the state budget is not growing. The income of the state is not growing, or money is not coming from the sky. So if you spend on the management of natural disaster and the post reconstruction in natural disasters, a major share from the budget will be on that aspect. So what will happen? So Odisha's plan for industrialization, Odisha's plan for agriculture, Odisha's plan for education, Odisha's plan for expansion of a health system will be affected. Suppose if schools are destroyed, then what will do? You will rebuild buildings. So after 99 cyclone, many of the state governments came and built schools as well as cyclone centers. So that's why every way of life, every aspect of life is affected by a natural disaster, and that's why disasters are closely related to development, and the developments are seriously affected by disasters. Then in stages of disaster management. So what are the stages? How can we manage? one is before disaster. You have information through satellites, through meteorological department globally, from information from America, information from other countries, information United Nations, influence of the central government's meteorological department, Odisha government's meteorological department, that this cyclone is such a stage, it will take 24 hours, 12 hours to reach Gopalpur Sea or to reach West Bengal or to reach Baleshwar coast. So you are prepared for that. Then people are evacuated from their homes. They are taken to a safe places like schools and other government buildings. They are given food. 2-3 days it will continue. So to make that zero casualty. So a new concept has emerged in the management of cyclones in Odisha or floods in Odisha in last 15 years after 99. What we have seen? Zero casualty. Nobody will die. Number one. During disaster. During disaster, maximum care will be taken to protect properties like building, like government, electric poles, etc., etc. Then you find post-disaster, pore. So what will happen? How many roads have been damaged? How many electric substations have been damaged? How many schools have been damaged? How many government buildings or offices? How many private houses have been damaged? So there is a process of mapping to identify by government officers at the panchayat level, block level. They identify in a panchayat, in a block, how many crops have damaged, how many buildings, houses, schools, and other centers have been damaged, private and public. Then they will be mapped, they will be identified. Then there will be reconstruction. How many roads have been washed away in flood? So this cycle is a disaster event. First, when the cycle happens, then what is your preparedness? What is the response to disaster? What is recovery? This continues. Significance of response and so on. So now we have staged the issues in disaster response. So government, my experience from 99 cyclone, we found that most of the what happened, government relief material is manipulated. That happened maximum in 99 cyclone. German government or German agencies provided some relief material which are costly and of high quality. So my personal experience, I found that these are siphoned off, taken away in a corrupt manner by the officers and employees concerned with the distribution of these items. So astonishing thing, this is a very pre-colonial or colonial feudal mentality. So this was taken care of later on, and we don't find, though there is no 100% proof regarding this, but we find that this is not happening, at least in the present times. The relief is going to the people. People have become more conscious regarding their relief material, regarding their government proposal, and many things. So the communication system has developed, campaigning has developed, and because of campaigning, consciousness, and communication system, then the risk preparation or disaster preparedness has increased, and the risk has been reduced. So now we need to capacity building. That means a government or agency must be capable enough to challenge, to face the negative consequences of this disaster. So I give the example of electricity, school, college, etc. Then in disaster management cycle, we in post disaster we have two approaches. One is long term and one is short term. Short term is immediately you give relief to the people. Immediately you give relief to them the health benefits. Their life must be protected. Immediately you give them food. Immediately you give them shelter. Immediately you give them health condition. This is short term. Long term, you need to plan. If there will be a recurrence of such type of disaster, then how this can be reduced, how this can be prevented, and how this can be done in a scientific manner with the involvement of the community. So there is a new model emerging in disaster management, that is community resilience. So last time was done Odisha State Disaster Management Authority, Public Administration Department of Utkal University. We made a seminar last year in Krushi Bhavan regarding this community resilience. What is community resilience? Resilience means capacity to born out of a disaster, come out of a disaster, to prepare yourself. Even if you are suffered, Even if you have suffered, you have to come out of that and prepare yourself to face the danger. That is resilience. So community has a great role in disaster preparedness, in disaster risk reduction, and in confronting disaster, managing disaster. So now the government agencies have taken community into confidence. They have made a community as an active participant in the disaster management, and that's a new model of disaster management or disaster governance. This is called response. So one is policy response. That means we must develop scientific policies from various aspects. That is pre-disaster, during disaster, post-disaster, scientific policy making, so that we can prevent that. These policies can be made out of the experiences in the last years in a state, in the entire globe, and also the new technological innovations regarding this. Second is administrative response. The entire bureaucracy, the entire administrative machinery must be well prepared, not ill prepared. They must have mobilization, they must have commitment, they must have innovation, they must have a commitment to the people, to the state, to the institution, to their service, not bureaucratic, not technical, just managing, just attending, just distributing, not like that. Unless you involve yourself in the job, because it is a humanitarian crisis, you have to involve yourself 100%, 100%, so that you can have a good role or lead role in managing these disasters. Then central response, at the central response means of the central government, administrative, operational requirements, help, etc., etc. Visits by big dignitaries, president, prime minister, other dignitaries, monitoring immediate release of funds, campaign in television and radio. So many issues of this center is gone, because most of the time you will find during natural disasters what happens. All the people, particularly of the state government, they accuse central government that central government is biased. It's not a question of who is in power, whether BJP or Congress or somebody coalition government. Is not every time the states criticize the central government, that central government is not giving money or relief material as per the demands of the state government, as per actual requirements. So there are political biases. Then another third important agency is the local agencies or local agencies of governance, local institutions of governance, like urban local bodies if it is an urban area, then Panchayat Raj institutions if it is rural area. They have a very good role. We saw in pandemic what happened. Panchayats had a greater role. Some panchayats did excellent jobs, and some panchayats totally failed. There were charges of corruption against them in misusing this relief material, relief money, etc., etc. Then we have the role of these elected representatives, the members of Gram Sabha, the ward members, the sarpanches, the Panchayat Samiti chairman, the Samiti Sabhyas, Jila Parishad chairman, etc., etc. They have a role because they are the leaders of the local people who are seriously affected who naturally affected in a disaster. So if they are mobilized, then the community is mobilized. If community is mobilized, then 50% problem is solved. If you provide resources under their involvement, active participation, your resources are secured, your resources are properly distributed with their participation. This is not, I'm not giving an ideal picture. There are lacunas, but there is not now, till now, there is not any better model than this. So you have inclusive democratic institutions, and they will participate in disaster management or post-disaster reconstruction. So these are the major agencies: central government, state government, and local Panchayat Raj institutions or urban local bodies, and finally community. I have already talked of community resilience. So I completed 2 chapters today. It's already 5. As Shara said, will take 1 hour class because battery is draining after in 2 hours. It's 2 hours is very torturing. So I found the email yesterday that it is 1 hour. So I third key will continue for 1 hour. The third chapter, there is a disaster management recent rates that will teach you in the next class. Okay. Is it fine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.